So, welcome everyone. We have up till there. We're here this morning. So we have two new people since this morning. Thank you. So why don't we just introduce ourselves and what do you wish to get out of this afternoon? My name is Nigel. Alan is just recording this, but the camera is focused here only. Okay, so we'll respect the privacy of each of you. Unless you want to stand over here and say, look at me, that's your choice then, but otherwise you're well away from it. And Bollywood. And so I'll just take a little vignette of this as part of what I'm doing. As we look at this freedom thing, my own journey around this started probably about 25 years ago, where 25, 30 years, I don't know, gosh, somewhere around there, 1993, that 25 years ago, where I was brought up in good old South Africa, nicely apartheid, nice structures, nice control systems, very much of a police state, very much a conservative NG Kerk, which is the Rede Geformeerde Kerk, which is the Dutch Reformed Church structures, and you thought that way or the highway. The concept of being gay was incredibly threatening. It was illegal, imprisonment, harassment, and so one learned it was not safe, so you end up living a non-authentic life and hiding until eventually things just explode. So my career took me through an engineering degree, electrical engineering, into large corporations as an engineer, MBA, again, executive management of large computer companies, and all the time, just no sense of happiness, joy, inner peace. It was this facade, it was this, there's a wonderful Freddie Mercury song as well, saying innuendo. There's that innuendo, that mask I was wearing. How do we let the mask slip? Until one day the mask did slip, and it was chaotic, a complete chaos, as I will put on the model where that chaos sits. And I had no choice but just to let go. My only option was, I knew when my parents had their gun, was to use it. That was the only option, 1993. I didn't even have the guts to do that. The world had just crashed. But interesting enough, in that absolute letting go, just surrendering, just letting go, nothing mattered. I lost my house in the process. I'd lost my job. I was laid off, retrenched for being an idiot, because I was just this crisis coming out. The only permanent thing in my life was a black cat I had. That died within 3 days. So even that went. So it's like, there's nothing left to hold on to. And so what I do, I sat and dwelled in self-pity for about 3 or 4 days, immense self-pity. I have a recommendation for each of you. If you're going to get into self-pity, feel sorry for yourself, just do it. Get it over and done with. Just totally indulge and move on. It is so tedious and so boring for other people to witness. Just do it and get over and done with and move on. And so luckily I got it up my system in about 3 or 4 days because people said, get over it. Okay. But the company I was representing from the US St. Louis, the CEO phoned me, or president said, what the heck is going on? We have this relationship and this business thing. What's happening? So poor me, he said, do nothing. And cut a very long story short, I ended up out of that, starting a new company, and did very well out of that. So the message behind that, that's also when my spiritual path really started, because nothing mattered anymore. It actually didn't matter. And the message out of that was really when we have got absolutely nothing to lose, we have absolutely everything to gain. Because the thing I was holding on to was meaningless anyway. It was my crisis. No one else really cared. To me, it was such a big deal in my life, but no one really cared. They all had their own crisis they're dealing with. They hadn't time to spend on mine. And I've learned that along the way. So since then I ran this business, was very successful there, sold that, moved to Australia in 1997 to Sydney. Had 15 years there, met Alan there, and then we came to the US in 2012, Lived in San Francisco 2 years, was too cold in summer. Miami for 2 years because the kahunas here said we're not coming to the island yet. We wanted to. Did what we had to do there, which is an important part of our transition, and came here about 2 years ago. So we've learnt along the way, I've learnt and Alan's learnt as well, just to surrender. I want to be free. I just want to be free. And when I surrender, things work out right. It's actually quite extraordinary how they work out. And I've realized along the way, I'm the only one getting in my own way. No one else is getting in my way for me. It's just me. So this book, the work around this book kind of started probably about 10 years ago, because in my transformation in South Africa, when I had nothing more to lose, the teachers just arrived. I always say when the student's ready, the teachers arrive. And boy, did they come fast and furious. It was 4 years of complete intense therapeutic work, of all different therapeutic type processes. I didn't ask for any of them. I didn't know what they were. They just arrived. And then a couple of very good teachers. One, she was the head of the Spiritualist Church in South Africa. Lady Hannah, who's in the spirit now. And then to counter her was this mad, crazy guy I met called Ferdy, who I write about in my book. He was like a shaman, mystic, just a naughty guy. And he was very playful, very joyful, but he would spend more time in... Have you guys read any Carlos Castaneda's work? Yes. Okay. He would be the closest thing to Don Juan. He couldn't read. He had cross eyes like this. He knew about Castaneda, but he had never read any of these books. It was like having a real live Don Juan teacher. Had for 4 years. And so that was extraordinary. So I became his benefactor in that. And a lot of the work he did was in the second attention, going back to Castaneda's terminology, the stuff just beyond the waking world, this world that we find ourselves in. And what I learned in that as well is it's very easy to become fixated or addicted to that world, just as we become addicted to this world. And my teacher was addicted in that world, which was fine, but it wasn't where I belonged. I ended up finding myself as a bridge between the two worlds. I would have appeared to be my kuleana, my purpose, but I had to figure that out. So the material which the book was created on started in that time. This guy Ferdy, other teachers came in. They were very influential. A lot of the Buddhist philosophies, a lot of different Christian philosophies. But didn't take long at all. Probably in about 2 or 3 years, I sat in development circle every single week, every Wednesday night, doing mediumship. As in South Africa, then moved to Australia, spent another 5 years every single week. And something eventually does drop in. I'm not that stubborn. But in that, I learned that mostly the work actually takes place in spirit. And these amazing teachers are just there to share with me exactly what I needed to hear from spirit at that time. And they would just be conduits of the right material at the right time. So whilst in the book I talk about Ferdy as my teacher, it's probably about 80% him, about 20% everyone else came in, and I've lost track where they all came from. They're living or not living. It doesn't really matter. So I just want to just check in where I am here. So thank you. So the idea of today is just to go through this program and have a look at some of the journey I think we all take on this model. The model was given to me by Spirit, by the guides, because the first copy of this thing I wrote, I proudly gave it to a publisher in New York, who I met in California. He took one look and says, "Go away." He says, "You've chosen the most difficult way to try and impart material. I've got all of Castaneda's books in my bookcase, and I try to emulate that style." He said, "That's got short shelf life, and it's also, Nigel, you're not a natural born writer." Ego was shattered. So he said, "Go away and take responsibility for the work you're doing. Take responsibility for your voice being heard, and don't talk about your teacher the whole time. You are now the teacher. Take responsibility for that." And that itself was actually quite a challenge, because it's much easier to say, "Oh, but the Buddha taught me that. Oh, but the Christ taught me that. Oh, but this guy taught me that. Oh, but she said that." No, suddenly I take responsibility for it. And that was a big transition as well, about taking ownership and stepping into a place of being seen and having a voice and not always hiding behind someone else. And so I went away and sat in City of Refuge for weeks on end, and most of this came through from there. So that's a very powerful place for me to work. And then got it all structured, and the model came through as part of that process, because what I've learned is this material is very circular, and the model is kind of two-dimensional. It's not circular, but the brain kind of thinks in a linear fashion. You know, we start on page 1 and we read to the end, and we hopefully learn something in the middle, as opposed to going round and round and learning it. And that was a challenge I had on this material, because I think all of you know the spiritual stuff is not necessarily linear. But how do you describe it in a linear way so one can learn from it? And that's what the guides has helped me with that. And Randall helped me also take this long screeds of writing and said, break into lots of little subheadings so we can understand it. That was great. So that was part of that process and that journey. And then the model originally was created. I had an artist come layout person in upstate New York, and she created this beautiful circular model which looked really nice and very beautiful. And I first used that, and I realized on a circular thing there are no extremes. We're just all in the same thing. And when I started going through it and started preparing for various workshops, everything, I said, hang on, but some of us are at the extreme ends of these things. How do we describe extremes? And I want to bring this thing out on the website as well, where you want to go and fill in, you know, a little test type of thing will then plot on the model where you are. And you need a matrix to do that. So the model became from a beautiful, picturesque, circular thing with nice soft arrows to this square thing to help put the extremes in place. So that's how that manifests and appeared. Some people like the soft stuff, it's nice, but sometimes growth isn't always soft. As we know right now, for those of you I mentioned this morning, you know, we're sitting here right in the breath of Pele, the fire breather, the transformation breath. We're right in it. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, welcome to the rest of us. If you're feeling compressed, welcome to the rest of us. Because she really is a transformation agent. Burns through things to create new life. And we've chosen, for whatever reason, to all be here at this time. There are no mistakes, there are no accidents. So we have a choice. We can either complain about it and play victim, or we can embrace it and say, what the heck do I get out of this? What do I have to let go of in order to become free? And these become some of the blind spots. And it's always hard working in blind spots, because if I knew what my blind spot was, it wouldn't be a blind spot. so it's always that challenge. And some of the work I've done in the corporate space is around creating a culture of collaboration and respect within organizations. It's how does one create an environment where there's sufficient trust within the organization or the team of people that I'm prepared to open myself up to invite you in to tell me what you think my blind spots are. And likewise, you trust me enough that I can tell you what yours are. But it creates time and space to do that. And we can talk about it a bit here, but it's going to take more than just an hour to do that, to create that space. And that's why there's all these follow-up type of workshop things, to create that space where we can actually go in there and hold the space for each other. So it's not a one, me talking to you and you sitting there. We actually do the work with each other to actually hold that. And one of the workshops I loved doing in the corporate space was based on color profiling, the color of collaboration and respect across the generations. So interesting. We have multiple generations from millennial, Gen X, Gen Y, and baby boomers. And the extraordinary thing in those workshops, and we come through this whole thing, is it's about 90 to 95% we all want the same thing. But we focus on that 5% difference. We forget about the 90-95% sameness. And in those workshops, a case of how do we get people to recognize and respect the sameness that we all have, and then use the differences to teach each other to actually grow. That's part of that. So let's have a look. So by the end of this afternoon, or this talk, when we get the model here, I want you to be able to identify where you are on this thing and what you might need to do. So let's go into this model thing. Oh, the tagline here, which is on my website, is basically rediscover ancient wisdom, that none of this stuff is new. It's all based on ancient wisdom. We've been around a long, 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 long time. And we're at this current incarnation sitting here in Hawaii right now, but we've been around for a long time. So I think we've just kind of forgotten about some of this ancient wisdom. And how do we tap into it? And how do we resurrect that? Because I don't believe there's anything new actually on planet Earth or in the cosmos. It's been here all along. We've just forgotten it. Reclaim freedom. The wisdom teachings tell us how to do that. They show us the way, how to reclaim that. But we need to do the work. They don't tell us that they'll do it for us. You know, as I say, with any of this work, the best we can do for each other is walk next to the person and make them feel safe. We can't give it to the person. We each must do our own work. It's bad enough me trying to fix myself. I can't possibly try and fix you or you or you. Not only does that take your karma away from you, of having to actually go through what you came here to do, it loads me up with your karma as well, which I don't want. Been down that path, done that, tried to rescue people. My archetype, if any of you do Carolyn Mace's work on archetypes, I'm the rescuer. Bad move. Alan, my husband, he's the pleaser. Bad move. Relationship together, rescuer and pleaser, disastrous. Yeah, and we've had to work through this. Whenever there's stress, like we move countries or jobs or something, the archetypes get triggered. Then we step into that role. And then the things just fall apart. You say, whoa, where are we? Oh, my pleaser's back there. Oh, my rescuer's back there. Need to break it. Need to step back and take a look. What damage is this causing? So that's been amazing just from taking ownership of recognizing we are our own worst enemies. And full-time job just fixing me. So reclaiming freedom takes work. And the goal is restore inner peace. That's where we were. I want to break free. I want to get out of this stuff. I want to get back to inner peace. And that nice cheesy song I played this morning at the end, Born Free. It's actually a wonderful song. That's great. I love it. Born Free. So, can you see that? Okay. So again, we showed this morning. That's a model that was given to me. And it's square, okay? Because there's extremes. The first one was circular with no extremes. So you just kind of cruise around it, very comfortable cruising around. No, I need to step off and do my work. So this is where the extremes are. So you have this axis here again, what I call soul energy. The aspect of who we are. I'm a soul having a human experience. When I'm completely and utterly connected with who I am, my soul, I'm up here. When I'm disconnected from that, I'm down there. When I'm so distracted by what I call shiny object syndrome, and there are so many distractions around us today, just turn on any of the television networks and we end up down there so fast in separation, because it doesn't serve them to be here. It has to be. So when I'm totally integrated with who I am, what I am, I'm up there. I am one with God. I am God. The Father and I are one. Okay, that's where I'm up there.
Sorry, Nigel, could I just get you to square that to me and get a reflection?
Which way? Better? Okay. All right. This axis here is what I call society's expectations. This is all in the book, by the way, since you've got a copy, it all sits there. And I actually build this whole thing up there's 13 different pictures building this whole thing up and taking it much further. And then this is just a useful framework for it here. So, society's expectations there. We'll go to the side here. We are, as we come in, well, we'll come in here. We come in there. We're outside here to start with. We're just pure consciousness. We have not chosen to incarnate yet. We're in spirit. Okay. We make a decision. Goody, it's time for me to accelerate my evolution. I'm going to be chosen to be born into parents or adopted parents of this choice. And we choose really, really carefully. So have you really thanked your mum and dad lately? Yeah, we choose very wisely, and if we choose really wisely, we have a really tough challenge with them sometimes, because that's where the growth is. Okay, and we choose close family and surround us. So conception takes place, and so before conception, we're choosing. Okay, I'm going to come in as a gay man because I want to experience that this time round. I haven't experienced that possibly in the past. Let's experience that because that has certain challenges with it. In this time of our life on planet Earth, this epoch we're in, good old patriarchal stuff, good religious stuff. Let's go and experience that because I need to evolve and grow rapidly. So choice is made, conception takes place, and I think in the womb, okay, it's not really what I signed up for, is it? I said, that's what you signed up for. Now, I had discovered along the way, apparently 7 months into pregnancy, I decided, I want to get out of here. This path I've chosen is not really what I want anymore. And as my mother says, bless her, we had to stuff you back in. So you could see full term. So clearly I did choose this, but so we're born. Okay, challenges. So we come along, first of all, we're nice and free. We're still the soul integration. We're completely the I am. We're not separated from the soul aspect. We're a little baby, and little babies look right through people. Look at you. They actually see everything around you, all the imaginary friends. They're right in there. But very quickly, they learn very rapidly. They better start conforming and complying if they want to stay alive. You know, if it's like, mummy's getting pretty exhausted here, you better start sleeping. And you better not do bad things with your diaper, and so on. So we learn very quickly conformance compliance. And that is very, what conformance is based on the society in which you are. Like, you know, us in our Judeo-Christian society might be different to an indigenous type people society, where you'd have the maternal grandmother would probably help bring you up, as opposed to being shunted off to play school while mum goes and works and dad's nowhere to be seen. So, but we learn to conform to the society in which we're born. So by the time we get to this 4 to 5 year old age, before we go to school, we're now well little complying kids. We're still integrated I am. This I am stuff, and I go a bit into it in the book, and my next book I'll be writing will be very much about this because it's a complex area. It's this concept of the divine feminine and the sacred masculine. At this point, we're still integrated with who we are. We haven't separated that aspect of who we are. We're double beings, as the Toltec teachings say. And whilst I may, gender-wise, be a boy, energetically wise, I'm still the divine feminine and sacred masculine. I'm a whole little thing. Then something happens. And the Toltec teachings, again, they share with us that the dreamer's body splits off, the term they use. I like Plato's mythology around that on the Symposium, where he talks about, let's have story time. So we all like stories. So we have, ready for a story?
Yes.
Cool. So once upon a time, every story starts with, in the land was a long, long, long time ago, in the world of Zeus. He was the great god, and everyone reported up to him. He sat in Washington, D.C. and he was surrounded by his petty gods or jealous gods. I think they might be called senators or lobbyists. I'm not quite sure what they're called. He was surrounded by them, and then they're ordinary folk. Everyone else, the other 99%, were underneath them. And everything was going fine. Everyone was getting on with their business. Everyone was good. And in those days, we were perfect double beings. We had 4 arms and 4 legs. It was really very cool getting around. You kind of rolled around. You didn't have to walk. And those 4 arms and 4 legs got you going. But one day, the ordinary folk, they woke up, as they're doing again today, and saying, this is not okay. We're being mistreated, and we're being taken for granted, being abused by the jealous gods, the petty gods. We're going to rebel. So what they did, they rebelled. Thank you. So they decided to rebel. So they went up Mount Olympus, They're not so much as ran up Mount Olympus. They kind of rolled up there because they had 4 arms and 4 legs. It was much easier. Let's see, how do I get this thing to stay here? Brrr, not sure. So I can't really clip that. Oh, that might work. So they rebelled and they rolled up Mount Olympus to go and speak to Zeus. And the petty gods and the jealous gods, they panicked and they rushed up saying, Zeus, Zeus, the ordinary folk are rebelling. They're not content with how we're controlling them anymore. What must we do? What must we do? And Zeus said, leave it up to me. I alone can fix it. So with a frightful lightning bolt, he sent this bolt of lightning down, and with that he cut his children in two, in half. He said, there, that'll now keep them for the rest of their lives looking for the other half of themselves, which is now split off. And that is how we had come to today, to have only 2 arms and 2 legs. Whereas the other 2 arms, other 2 legs represent the soul aspect which was split off from us at that age, 4 to 5. And we spend the rest of our lives feeling very sorry for ourselves, trying to reconnect and reunite with that part of ourselves we've lost. Okay, so there's a mythology around this. This stuff is old stuff, the ancient wisdom stuff. But it's really the how is one of these concepts of unknowable, in the Toltec teachings as well. We have the known, the unknown, the unknowable. That unknowable is really what is... So we have mythology to help us try and have metaphors for the split. Why it happens is a lot clearer. If we are perfect double beings, if I'm the perfect expression of divine, feminine, and sacred masculine, I have no need to go out in search of a mate. If I've got no need to go out in search of a mate, well, not much breeding takes place. If breeding doesn't take place, well, there's no new little bodies for souls to come in to incarnate, so they can evolve at this rapid pace on planet Earth. So we know the why. The why is to create space and vehicles for souls to incarnate, so we can be here, so we can do our work, and we choose to come in. But we use mythology on the how. So around this age of 4 to 5, if you look at kids at that age, what do we do to them? We shunt them off to school. We shunt them off to go to religious training, without their permission, of course. They have their various, well, they might have been christened already and baptized already, and we impose upon our little ones our values without their permission. I remember my goddaughter in Sydney being sent off to her christening, and I was challenging her parents and saying, why are you doing this? Oh no, it's because our parents, it's so much easier, we just did it. So we don't have any hassle with our own parents if Natalie went and did this. I said, what about her? What if she doesn't want to be Catholic? Oh no, when she gets 18, she can make up her own mind then. I said, the damage is already done by then, if that's not what she wanted to have done. So we don't consider that. So that is, as we come down here, that age we start coming down pretty rapidly, this separation from the I am. So again, I think a lot of these metaphors might be for the incredible distraction we have around us at age 4 to 5. Suddenly the world's very distraction. But with that, we also shut down at the same time our imaginary friends. Those things who are in spirit and we're connected to, which give us a sense of wholeness and completion. We're separate from them because that shuts down. No, little Fiona, that's very cute. There's no mermaid sitting in your garden there. Don't be silly. That's just your imagination. Okay, there's no mermaids. Oh. And we kill that in our children. So we start training them as separation, conformance, compliance. So it doesn't take long before we've come around here. We find ourselves in quadrant 3. Quadrant 3 is a place where we now go off to school, off to college. We get further training. We're told it's even worse today than it was in my life, my time. Critical thinking is not a big part of our education system anymore. Critical thinking, you will conform and comply, and you'll believe what we tell you to believe. We're really training people to be down here. So this orange line here is what we call this axis of control. So we're sitting right down here, and if you can keep people down here, through separation of the soul. The only way to God is through us, me, the preacher, whoever it is, the elders. And conform and comply, we can control you. This is where control takes place. This is where most of us feel dissatisfaction, anger, resentment, unhappiness, down here. Okay. Because what are we looking for? We're looking for that thing we've lost. The thing which was separated from us. It's not in you that I'm going to find it. It's not in Ella I'm going to find it. It's not in anyone I'm going to find it. It's in here I'm going to find it. But I spend my life looking for it outside there. Then something about you, I say, oh, wow, Davina, you're really, really cool. Can we hang out together? Because you make me feel good about myself. Not for once if I think how I make you feel about you. Because I'm trying to claim that feeling for me because I've lost it. So how do I claim it back for me? So we go in and out of relationships, one after the other, trying to find in the other person that thing which we have lost in ourselves. But it's not in the other person. It never will be, never was, never is. Aspects of the other person will resonate with a part of who we are, but it's just a resonance. It's not the complete thing. So down here, we totally surrender. We're told who we must marry, how we can marry some religious arranged marriages down there, and so on. But, you know, you're going to be a good little Christian boy, marry a nice little Christian girl, you're going to have your 2 kids, your cat and a dog, a car, swimming pool, a mortgage, and debt, and you're going to be this corporate person, and we're going to control you fully. As long as we can do that to you, we are happy. Never mind how you are. And I think we've all been there. We know what that feels like. So, we come through, what happens down here is we say, I can't, this is a pressure cooker, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need to get out of here. And that getting out of here is the sense of what I call, I need to be seen. I need to be acknowledged for who I am. I need to be honored for who I am. I need to start becoming authentic because I can't hide behind my inauthenticity any longer. It's far too painful. It's far too exhausting. So that's see me. And eventually we're seen. But we end up here thinking, if only I had my own company, I'd be free. You know, if only I could go to Hawaii from the mainland, I would be free. If only I could buy a bigger house, I'd be free. If only, if only. But all we're doing is moving across here. We still haven't done our inner work yet. So something comes along and says, okay, call it a knock-off spirit. Again, a Toltec teaching, a knock-off spirit comes along. It says, bam. It's usually an illness, an accident, a loss, a partnership loss, divorce, child loss, something like that. Something comes along. It needn't be as drastic as those big ones, but something happens. We're going to a place of crisis. And we have to wake up. We've got no choice but to wake up. Because if we don't, we know life's not worth living. And from crisis, we then start doing our work. So that was my journey through there, was that crisis saying, I cannot hide who I am any longer. I don't want to. I need to actually be authentic to myself. That's my journey there. So if we look at that there, we'll just plot on there what some of the major emotions are down here. Down here, that sense of separation becomes meaningless. There's not much meaning down there. We get up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, put the kids to bed, get up, go to work, carries on. So that's that there. What's on the other side of that? The opposite of that?
Joy. Purpose.
Joy.
Purpose.
Purpose. I have my kuleana. I know what my kuleana is. I've got purpose. And it's not doing what you think not what you tell me I should be doing. I'm going to find my own sense of purpose. I'm going to go out and journey and do that. Hello, John. And I'm going to do this. Over here, what keeps us in this place? What keeps us conforming and complying? Fear. Fear, yeah. Fear that if I don't do it, I'm not worthy. If I don't do it, I'm going to be rejected. If I don't do it, I don't fit in with my tribe. If I don't do it, I'll be fired from my job. If I don't do it, my wife, husband, partner, cattle walk out on me. Fear, fear, fear. You can see we're down here. And outside there, to get to that point, what do we need?
Courage.
Yay, we need courage. Yay. But that courage is tough because this is very overpowering. Sitting down here is very overpowering. What I show on, unless I'm kind of moving around a little bit, I'm allowing myself to be fluid. It's actually the very last picture in my book. On page 182, there's your model. It shows that this space A down here, which is basically here, is where you're controlled by rules and regulations. This down here is where your soul, you've surrendered your soul to a higher someone else. This area C is where you totally give up. And as the model shows, there's no connection between C and place of freedom, D up there. So we have to do our own hard work. Now, having come through there, we can plot where we are by looking at the emotions associated with it. And we know what this one here is. Hate, anger, resentment, powerless. So think about this now when you're talking about your blind spots, where you're feeling in your life right now, what's happening. Are you feeling resentful about a situation or a thing or a person or a place? Are you feeling powerlessness in your situation, that I can't actually move forward in my life because this property is holding me back or because this relationship's unresolved or something? Things like that. You start seeing where you are. What are you having to do? So then we move. Let's just go up to the next one up there. So we break out of this thing here and say, screw that. I'm going to go and do my own thing. And you speak to our leader today. And what do you find there? No, there's a separation. Yeah, this is where ego sits. The ego's down there. Insensitivity, selfishness, greed, ego. It's all about me. This American dream about the individualism is about this access only, has got nothing to do with that. We forgot to put that in that dream. We actually have come through with our religious faith-based backgrounds. We've dropped into the space down here, and we say the dream is moving from there to there because we've ignored this axis. Okay, so that dream is, in my mind, not such a cool dream. And so up here, though, these are what I call activists are up here, where they say, I don't want to get sucked into this meaninglessness of life. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to fight that. They become the activists, and they become quite frustrated with life. The activism takes place there. And as we know, activism is great, but not if we get locked into it, because that drops us into anger eventually and resentment. Because we associate with the act of activism, not with the cause itself anymore. So we end up being separated from the cause. We get into the act of activism, which takes us back there. Okay, and then we do our work, and what happens? We get back up here.
Happiness.
Joy.
Yay! Freedom. Freedom. And the other great thing we find there, that's what we want all along, is this little thing called inner peace. That's where we find it. So if there's these blind spots, if there's things like that, where are they here? Okay. You get an idea how this thing works. Okay, so we can take it from a personal level, we can look at other people, we can take it at a national level, we can take political level, a societal level. This thing, the guides actually did, I think, quite a nice job putting that together. Because this was on my whiteboard for ages, as they're tweaking it, until eventually came out. So what does that mean? Yes, sir?
Maybe I'm
This whole path is around awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Without awareness, we're at the mercy of falling into this place here. So it's an awareness of saying, I'm actually not feeling liberated. I'm not feeling at inner peace. A lot of people are quite happy being here, by the way. They're very happy. We know people, don't we? Very happy being down here. They look taken care of, they've got their pension, they go to church every week, they've got their grandchildren, they're very happy. They don't have that awareness. Okay, so awareness is, I don't want to be here. So that awareness, how do we know or find that place? And this little card here, which help yourself to on the table, called 6 Steps to Reclaiming Your Personal Power. This place here is powerless. That's where power sits, up here. And I will be talking about this in the future, some other stage. Power is a female affair. Power is not a male affair, it's a female affair. Strength is a male affair, power is a female affair. We feel powerless. Who takes our power away? Bully men. Who runs these organizations? Bully men. They take female power away to a place of powerlessness because that's how they feed from it. All right, that's fairly controversial stuff, but we live in Mother Earth. This is a female affair, so power is female. So this thing, 6 Steps to Reclaiming Your Personal Power, I put that together. There's affirmations here like, for example, a behavior which leads to loss of power. Just take one of them. You need to always have the last word. Anyone here can relate to that? Okay. And amongst that same little block is you need to feel you're always right. And the third one there is you believe you are more important than others. Ouch, I know. Well, the affirmation around those 3, I have no need to convince another. Stillness is my friend. We don't need to convince anyone. It's actually... So it's getting that... It's finding out when you wake up or what's happening is what is the question that's going on? What does make me feel uncomfortable? Is it because my partner has pissed me off in something? Which is, what does that mean? It means maybe you feel concerned for how others perceive you. He's not respecting me. He doesn't value me, for example. Affirmation there would be, I alone am responsible for my happiness. I take charge of my life. So these, down here, these are all the ways we give away power to end up down here. Those there are the affirmations to get back up to here. Okay, but this takes work, as we know. This is years of work. But as we got to start, and it all starts with awareness, 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 and then being available to receive. And I find on the island here, we have no choice but to receive. If we don't, we shut down to it. We are smacked so hard by all sorts of things here. Pele is opening us up so widely at the moment. It's a wonderful teacher. So that's that. The other one as well, which I find a great way for reclaiming power, say no. No. And you know, me being the archetypal rescuer, of course I'll step in and take over the Mango Festival. Have I just lost all my power to the Mango Festival? So that's why it's a circular thing. I sit back and everyone says, oh, goody, goody, now there's all the stuff you go make it happen. Oh, hang on, what have I just signed up for? And I'm right back in here. Okay, that's how easy and how fast it happens. So I believe we're...
Smaller life issues than... the Mango Festival is this tiny piece of life. Inner peace is something else.
But being able to say no to one thing at a time, you take your power back. And each little piece builds upon the next piece, upon the next piece. Eventually saying no isn't about you, it's about honoring who you are. To say no. And the awareness of how do I feel about that? Do I feel guilty? Oh my God, where does guilt come from? When I say no to someone, it comes from, I've been taught the separation. And where does that come from? My religious upbringing. Like guilt. Or the fear, if I say no, then maybe they might just leave me and not love me anymore. You're expected to say yes. Or the whole guilt, fear thing. We find ourselves here. This is this is where society puts us, where the greatest learning takes place. If you were here all the time, you probably wouldn't have been born. Okay, there's no learning here. This is a place to take a break. Hopefully, before you die, when you die, you're heading out this way. Okay, you'll end up, even though it's the last breath you take, you'll take a whole life review and say, what was all that really about? And off you go. Hopefully we can do that life review and do our work and get back here before we die to then say, I am ready. And that concept, I'm sure many of you heard that we can incarnate many times over in the same physical body, because our life expectancy is so long now that the frequency of vibration, the Aquarian era, has shifted vibrational frequency quite a lot higher. We can do this stuff quite quickly without having to get rid of this body at the same time. So we come back and say, wow, this is a whole new incarnation I'm in, a whole new life I'm in. What's my next journey? Done that one. What's my next? And the nice thing about being in the same body is we don't lose the consciousness of our previous lifetime with that, because we're in the same body, the same consciousness. And we just lift out of this thing. So it's like really conical, this thing. You get to a point over here, hopefully, that things with the awareness, with that we recognize I'm in that space, I'm sitting over here, I'm feeling fearful, I'm feeling angry, what I need to do, I need to regain my boundaries, I need to say no, I need to accept peace. That is that kind of concept. So when we die in a place of peace. And what I do as we go through, I'll just show these as little slides because they're in the book, these pictures. I talk about how do we, not all of us go through all this stuff, thank goodness. So we can short circuit the stuff, which is really the idea of awareness. So we short circuit it. We don't go through the same old stuff over and over. And starting page 160, I start different models. What I call here the path to freedom for the advanced soul. It's basically coming in. We all come in. We all go through this survival mode, age 4 to 5, where we now are shifted off into society. But for the advanced soul, what I feel is that they wake up. They're the ones who've got parents who are highly evolved. Parents recognize this. The parents aren't down here, or they are. They've done their work. They're back up here. And they look at the child and say, no, this child doesn't need to go through that. That's an advanced soul, advanced child. I'm going to help that child go back and find that space. So they go back here. Okay, they don't need to drop into this separation. They're never taught that they are not one with God to start with. They always believe that. They know it. They never have this. It's not a case they have to wake up to it. They already know it as advanced souls. And we see them, the indigo children or the crystal children, various people like that. And so we help. And our role as adults, we do our own work, is to support those people. And there's enough of them amongst us as well here anyway, who've done their work and they're back there. But to recognize as advanced souls and support them and protect them and from some of this negativity, so they can be the avatars of life. So,
You know what I mean?
so page 162, the challenging path to freedom for the advanced soul. Thank you. So there we have it, the kind of thing there, where they'll come in and they will be challenged, and they will start being pulled down there, but they'll recognize this is not where I want to be. This is not who I am. I don't want to be there, and I'll start coming up. But of course, those people there have recognized them saying, you're staying here. No, I don't. And they have this path, which is kind of this rocky road as they try and get back up there. So they never end up staying here, having to go through that. I call that a challenging path of the advanced soul. And I would say often those people who've got parents who are not awake, they incarnate to average normal parents, but they're advanced souls, and they're part of their teaching is to help the parents evolve, part of their purpose with that. And so my file's helping me evolve here, which is nice. This is, didn't you used to love the good old days when you had overhead projectors with flip chart paper? Those slides were so much nicer than these things. So then we. Oh, good. It's, I've been told many times it's quite cute, so that's okay. So this has got very messy. So we then say, however, if that's where the advanced soul ends up, where do most other people end up? And I call it path to freedom via chaos. So we come along here, we drop down there, and we end up over here. This messy, messy place, going round and round and round and round and round. And eventually, bang, no more, can't take it. I'm just out of here, and that breakthrough can happen, and you end up going back there, straight from here. But I think a lot of us have been through this. A lot of us. So Randall, you come back to you saying, once we get this awareness, we find ourselves, I don't need to drop back into this again, in this example. I've had that before in a previous relationship, or in a previous time in this relationship. I can step out. That's the awareness. But this part here, though, in this crisis, is where a lot of us end up. I would say 90%. Because this is a very strong conspiring control. The whole of society conspires to keep us here. Unless we have this awareness before we get to our teenage years, we're pretty screwed. And not many people start this journey until the second return of Saturn. Or return of Saturn, first return, yeah. Okay, so that's a tricky one. Then the next one, I call it the path to freedom via awareness. So this looks like that. Comes down, I drop down here at my teenage years, but whoa, hang on, and we're seeing some young people coming into the center who come along, they're just like their early 20s, mid-20s, saying, wow, this is amazing. We had this young guy sitting there this morning. He's saying, I don't want to be here, I don't need to be here, I'm out of here. And that's going straight through, back up there. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that now. And that's actually great. And I'm so envious of them. So they get through there, there's no crisis, there's just recognition, I don't want to be there. Okay, they don't need to be seen. I'm just out, I just don't want to be here. All right, so then we get, however,
The thing that popped into my head is now, not only do I not want to be there, but there's actually another place to be.
yeah,
There has to be an awareness that there is
correct.
someplace else.
Yeah. And they may be seeking that awareness, and they come to places like this and find a tribe which supports that. Their tribe. Next one is, of course, and I can speak personally from this one. Come down here, there's chaos over here. That doesn't work. Chaos leads to, I need to become authentic, I need to be seen, I need to be recognized for who I am, I can't live this lie anymore. And so I end up going through here and believing I'm being cool by starting my own company, believing if I make it all about me, not the I am, but all about the me, me, me. I am great, you're not. I alone can fix it, you can't. And we know who we're talking about. We sit down there, and that eventually, again, ends up to a place of crisis. It's the energy to keep that going is enormous. And I invite you to actually watch our president, because he's a great example of this, not because I dislike him or like him, that's irrelevant. It's, so I'm not taking a personal beef here, I'm just saying, but he's a wonderful example of someone stuck here. It's great, and the amount of energy he's using to stay relevant the whole time, the separation. He's very much an anti-establishment, non-conformist, non-compliance. He breaks every system, anything here he breaks completely, so it's way over here, but he's got no sense of soul or self. It's all about this here. And he will end up in crisis. We're actually watching this train fall off the cliff. But what it means that we as a nation, we are part of the journey with it. So how do we hold the space so we don't lose our inner peace in the process? So at some point, and one hopes it'll happen, say with someone like that, that typically will happen either through a stroke or heart attack or impeachment or something, where it ends up going through that. But that becomes the learning process for that soul. So there's no judgment in that. It's saying, what does that soul need for his individual learning, and how can we as a nation and a national group support that? Not because we dislike it, because that's the anger. If I dislike it, I'm stuck down here myself. Because he's not complying with what I want, therefore I despise him because he's over there. I'm just as disconnected from who I am. by doing that. So we don't yell at them and be angry about it. We say we come from this place here with love and compassion. How can we help this person get back there, knowing there's going to be some crisis there? That's a journey I went through myself. Ending up with this crisis here, then breaking through. But that's a painful, those breakthroughs. Anyone who's been through a full breakdown, they are really, really painful. And thank you for sharing on Facebook that, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? That one journey you shared that, and a lot of people holding the space in your sharing. And that was about this coming back. So these are pain. Yeah. And these are so we're saying, what individual work do I need to do? Where are you? Where do you find yourself sitting? It's to say, where am I sitting? Then what's my options? If I'm sitting over here, my options are to go straight back there, or go this way, or hopefully get back there. If I'm sitting over here, I can indulge in it and go round and round and round because I lack awareness. Eventually I hit crisis, and hopefully it catapults me out. Or I don't recognize my own crisis. I end up moving the whole thing over here, and I'm having crisis there, then getting catapulted out. So each one of us is in a unique place. Okay? As a nation, we're sitting over here at a national level. And that's quite clear to see. But where do we individually sit? And those who support the national agenda are probably sitting there themselves. They're sitting here or here because they resonate with that. Again, not a judgment in that. Because to get back to your question, Randall, of how do we overcome this, is to how do we recognize we're in a place of discrimination and judgment versus discernment and genuine curiosity. I'm brought up in apartheid South Africa that's legalized discrimination. I know what it felt like. Their discrimination, separation, conformance, compliance, that's what discrimination means. I discriminate against you. Discernment is I recognize the differences in you. I recognize you're a woman, I'm a man. I recognize you're vertically challenged and I'm not. But there's no judgment in that. That's just discernment. So what does it feel like to be a woman? That's very curious. The challenges we're going through in the nation at the moment, what does that feel like to you? I'd like to learn. That's that discernment. That's genuine curiosity. Discrimination is when I say, oh, so you are a woman with a German background. Oh my gosh, how awful. I'm much better than you because of. That's discrimination.
How wonderful, what are all
Exactly. That's how discrimination works. And being in South Africa, of course, and we see it in this country. Discrimination is absolutely rife. We just haven't labeled it yet. We haven't given it the word like apartheid. We're seeing what's happening at the borders. Discrimination.
Do I need it again, though?
No. So how do we find ourselves in discrimination and judgment? Recognize that through awareness and step into a place of genuine curiosity and discernment. And saying it's okay to be different. I'm not fearful of my difference. I'm finding meaning in my difference and your difference. It takes courage to say it's okay being with a transgender person, for example, or a black lesbian, or a murderer just released from prison. It takes courage being with those people and not judging them or discriminating with them. It's okay. And that's how I can free myself from that. Does this help a little bit in trying to get some stuff into contexts of how we find ourselves in this place? And how easy it is to be stuck here, and how easy it is to drop in there without even knowing it and recognizing it. It just happens so automatically. Because that's where society is engineered to keep us here. So it takes no effort to go there. Yeah.
So when you use this model and apply it to yourself to discover your own blind spots, how do you approach it? Do you ask yourself a series of questions like, where am I resentful? Where am I feeling powerless?
Well, first of all, I say, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling really angry with what you've just said or done. Okay, what is that telling me?
Discrimination rather than discernment.
Yeah, what is it about you that's making me feel angry? guess what? I can't actually fix you. I can only fix myself, and that's a full-time job. So what can I do about it? Because as long as you're making me feel angry, I'm holding that charge of anger. It's got nothing to do with you. It's a charge I'm holding. You're just a wonderful mirror to me. So again, in taking Castaneda's terminology and things like that in the Toltec teachings, we bless our petty tyrants. We bless those demigods. We bless the ones on the Zeus, the ones who were terrified, because they teach us to do our inner work. They teach us to say, no, that's not okay. I need to find my own boundaries. I need to find out what my truth is, discern my own truth, find my own meaning, have the courage to say no. Not because I'm judging you, but because it's not my truth. You're entitled to your truth. That's okay. You can have your truth. I don't mind. But it's not my truth. I don't need you to make it my truth. It's tough because we really are in this space. And it's not easy. And up here, these rules and regulations up here, they're not bad. These are the ones I said this morning. Drive on the right-hand side of the road. Sensible gun control regulation. You know, things like that. If you don't pay your utility bill, you get cut off. You know, they're fairly sensible sort of rules. The ones down there are those just to control and manipulate. And when Noah came in with its proposals, it was dragging us into this quadrant. And people reacted. They said, no, we want to be here. They just in that one meeting dragged everyone straight down to this place here, and we saw what happened. People didn't like it. So they had to actually go through their crisis and come back up again. And guess what happened when we did that? Noah disappeared. It wasn't about them, it was about us as a community having to do our work. They've gone. But the community had to do its work. And what happens here, that's good, but this thing we became separated from, our soul aspect, never rests.
Right.
It's wanting to reconnect all the time. So we jump into relationship and out of relationship, into lust, out of lust, backwards and forwards, trying to reconnect. Eventually we're so exhausted from relationships or through broken families or divorces, whatever, we say, I can't take it anymore. What is it I'm trying to reconnect with? And we start doing our work, get back to this thing. Because it never ever rests, our soul aspect. We might become numb, you know, that Pink Floyd song, Comfortably Numb, sits down here. They're exhausted. This is exhaustion here. This is where you have to have 3 jobs just to make ends meet. You haven't got time to worry about this, you know, this stuff.
Because it's all about awareness. They don't know.
Yeah.
Until somebody tells them.
Yeah. And this here is not about rejecting conformity compliance. It's not allowing conformity compliance to control you. It's not the same as rejection. It's just saying I'm ambivalent to it. It doesn't affect me anymore. If you want to have these gun controls, it doesn't actually affect me anymore. I'm not going to fight it. It doesn't affect me. It's not saying I'm going to constantly fight, be the activist the whole time. This person is the ambassador. That's the ambassador. That's the activist. Okay, I'm going to live in a place of love, happiness, compassion. I'm going to say these gun controls, you know, I don't necessarily agree with them, but I'm not going to go and fight them. Because if we all live in that place, there's no need for gun control. If we all become ambassadors for freedom and spirit, there is no need for any of this other stuff. This is irrelevant. And that's the whole point. That finding inner peace. In my bio, which you read out this morning, freedom at the global level starts with individual. If I can get back there, if we can all get back there, there is none of this stuff anymore. Yeah, and again in the Toltec teachings, they call, when we start on our spiritual journey, we step off the known world, the island of the known, where everything is known, everything is safe, known. We step into the unknown. That journey is got a word. It's called the being in the loneliest place on earth. We have to do our work. We can only do it at our own terms alone. People can walk next to us, but they cannot do our work for us. It's called the loneliest place on earth, is taking responsibility for stepping off the known world into the unknown. but in the absolute knowledge that when we surrender, we'll only be given that which we can deal with. We'll never ever be given more. And that's where trust, big capital letters, T-R-U-S-T, come in. Just trust. And invariably it works. It takes the courage from fear to become independent, liberated from the known, island of the known, which is suffocating me. I need to step off it.
It's a daily step.
Yeah. But a lot of us are shoved out of it. Like I was shoved out when I got fired from my company for being an idiot.
Yeah.
I was like, go.
Divine help.
Yeah. Now what I'm suggesting is we don't all need to go through crisis. We recognize this through awareness. We can do this. People who don't go through awareness go through one crisis, followed another crisis, another crisis, another crisis, and they, as any of you watch Ab Fab, absolutely fabulous, the British, as Edwina's daughter, Safi, says to her mother, Mum, you live in a world of one self-induced crisis after the next self-induced crisis.
Yeah. Right. There's no quitting.
No. And she's down here, Edwina.
Yeah, constantly.
She's always down here. Complete separation, totally independent, but totally separated. She's down here all the time. Okay, and yeah. And then that surrender is where we move up this axis.
Yeah, but the arrow would
Oh.
go that way.
Okay, so this is actually an arrow, yeah, both directions. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean from
yeah.
forward to
You can,
three.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I've had time to write kind of reversed everything like that.
So you look at this kind of mess here. This is out the book. There's a complete mess happening here. You can actually get back in there and just go back up there. These are messy areas. These aren't all neat little blocks. Because everything is messy, this whole thing. But it's kind of saying, where am I though? Have I come from this? I really worked hard to be an independent property owner and to have my own farm. And this is all exhausting. This is all too hard. I'm going to go and work as a checkout counter lady at KTA.
Surrender. Okay.
Surrender. And you may find that's where Spirit's pushing you. Next thing is you're just all the way up there. Who knows? We actually don't know. And that's the point. We actually don't know until we surrender and trust ourselves. So this just gives you a bit of a taste, a bit deeper than we went into this morning, of using this thing a bit more. I say the book, as Randall said, and you've said as well, most people have read it end up 2 or 3 times because it's a workbook. It's not a storybook. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and I just have Spirit to thank for it because most of the stuff came from Spirit. I'm not that clever. And so what do I do next with this? What can we do next with this? On September the 15th, which is exactly 2 months, I'm going to be running a full one-day workshop on this from 9:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon to take to the next level now. This stuff it spirals. This is going to sit and settle in, doing some reading the book, we'll settle it in further. And we end up doing work on this, and a whole day will give us a lot of time to work in groups and start supporting each other to get back here and doing that. So there's information's up there on that. So if you're interested in that, just keep in touch with me around that. It's really looking at this saying, how can we find that place? What can we do to support each other find that place? What has taken me out of it? And bring real examples like that. And where am I now, though? That was an example back then, but today there's another example sitting right next to you. As a seer, I see these things.
Crisis I had 6 months ago.
No, but there's another one happening right now. So, because that's part of the training is to see things around people. And so that's why I work with people individual level to see what's actually happening and just going in there so they can find their own path. I can't tell anyone what your path should be. That's the last thing I can do or should do. Okay, but one can actually see if what you're bringing forward is an ego-based solution or a fear-based solution or a separation-based solution. So are you sure that's really what you want to do? Have a look again. You might end up finding a different way forward. That's what that work does.
Facilitator, I guess I have to
So,
write things up.
so that's that. And then I'm also planning before the end of the year, hopefully, an 8-week program. I'm calling a Master Transformation Program. I am a qualified transpersonal counselor, transpersonal psychology from Australia. And I'm also a professional coach, ICF accredited. So I bring those two together, what I call transpersonal coaching. that's going to be really looking at over an 8-week period of 2 nights a week, 2 evenings a week, and then a full immersive weekend of taking things through, looking at what I call mapping the terrain, is what do we think our issues are. Going and doing is a great process called chakra mapping. Nothing to do with fiddling with energetic chakras, but it's actually asking questions to the body, and you can do that, facilitate that with each other. And from that, the actual real issue is revealed, not what we think it is, and they are invariably different, which is actually quite cool. You think, oh, do I really have to go and do that now? Yes, you do, because that's what's holding you back here. And we go through that, look at the tribal environment, and then there's looking at these negative belief systems, and that's where the blind spot sit. And it's typically like a pattern. Oh, I'm unable to run my business successfully, is my belief system, or I'm unsuccessful as a business person because I was told that I am not smart enough to run a business, and therefore I actually always sabotage everything I do, and therefore I actually don't, and we go round, and therefore eventually we get back to the same thing, and therefore I'm not smart enough to run a business. It becomes a belief system, or whatever it might be. And these things are insidious. The affirmative loop around that, we call the A loop, is not like I'm ugly, stand in front of the mirror, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. It's not that affirmative stuff. But it's the affirmations step in very different ways. It could be like, I'm not smart enough to run a business. Could be, the affirmation is that I have the energy to step into my own power. Could be the affirmation against I'm not smart enough. Could be something quite a bit different. Little tiger goes past there. So that's quite powerful as well. And then the part I really, really love of this is what I call transpersonal journeying, where we get to write a mythology, get to write a story. And why is that powerful?
You're documenting it and you're realizing it by writing it down.
Yeah, you're becoming a witness to your journey. But every good story starts with? Once upon a time, yeah. Every good story ends with? Happily ever after.
Yeah.
And the only third rule of a story is got to be a metaphor. Cannot be about yourself plugged into the story, because if we plug ourselves into the story, we get stuck in the story in where we are in our lives at that point in time. Okay? And we can't get through it. That's the very purpose of doing the story. We get stuck in our blind spot. We can't see past it. So in the story, it's part of the hero's journey, the old Joseph Campbell stuff. So the metaphor could be anything. I've once been a lighthouse whose light went out and had to be rekindled and shone again. So the prince, we've had dragons, we've had mermaids, we've had star children, star seeds, all different metaphors. And the metaphor will come at the right time. You can't force it either. And suddenly you're in that story and you actually come through it. The idea of the metaphor is you can break through your own life using a metaphor. You can't break through using yourself because you're stuck in it. Metaphor you can. Next thing, a star child came down to earth and its energy was impregnated the planet and these beautiful star children are born or whatever. You can do that as a metaphor. So we do that, and then the writing the story is one thing, very powerful. Having it witnessed is extremely powerful. When I did this program, there were 17 of us in it. To have 17 people just hold a space of unconditional love and witness your greatest fears and just be present and hold that with love and compassion helps break through the stuff which is holding you back, because that energy is so strong, it just drags you through it. And that's very powerful. I'll come in 1 second. And then once that's done, having a witness, next thing is what we call sacred theatre. We get to enact that story. And that's actually very, very beautiful, using music or props or clothing or whatever you want to actually act that whole thing out, and you just have to be witness and space is held. And that's incredibly healing. And then there's a whole sort of closure and integration around that, because that's very powerful, that process. That's part of the 8-week program, because this is deep, deep transpersonal work. That's a work I love doing that part the most, but there's a whole lot to lead up to it. As I mentioned earlier, in order to get into people's blind spots, you've got to earn trust, respect, and that takes time. So for like the first while, it's just creating a space of trust and respect, until you can actually dive into that deep work. So yeah, that works that way. So that's kind of what's happening. There's a sign-up sheet there for my website, things like that, so I can put you on, keep you informed what's going on if you like. And I do send a blog out. Take one of these cards here, shove it on your fridge. Say, oh, which one am I today? You often blame others for how things turn out. Not me. Okay, and so on. Are there any other questions before we wrap up on this now? Yeah.
Can you re-explain real quick the mythology? The rewriting mythology?
So the mythology, Shrek, it's a great story mythology. You know, like once upon a time, there's this ogre lived happily in the swamp. Everything was going cool. I'll get this a flip chart here. We have words on this, but I'll try and use this. So in the hero's journey, everything is going along fine, and then some crisis comes. Point of crisis. So this is Shrek. He's living happily in a swamp. Everything is going great. The next thing is they want to take a swamp away from him. Everything's going along in your life fine. Everything's good. Next thing, your partner walks in and says, you know what? I don't think I'm really into this relationship anymore. Or you think you're happy in your job. Next thing, they say, we're downsizing. It doesn't matter what this crisis is. This is one of these crises. This is that thing we plotted on the chart here. It's that thing there. Comes along, okay? And then from there, we start losing the way, descent, lost. We become into post-depression. We get down to a point down here, which is called a nadir, N-A-D-I-R, dark night of the soul. Breaking point, yeah. And this is where the metaphorical death takes place, and hopefully not the physical death. The worst case, that's where suicide happens. But it's metaphorical death, saying, I can't take it anymore. I need to surrender in the bathtub. I just need to surrender. That's a nadir. I can't take it anymore. When that happens, something over here, we call the medicine. Excuse my writing. The medicine steps in. The medicine can be a book, a movie, a person, a phone call, a teacher steps in. And that shows you the way. And from that, you start coming out the other side. Until we have the return here. So there's the return of the hero. And here's the return. Okay, so we come back here and there's a new dispensation. We've now defined our life differently. We have the return of our heroine. Kathleen's still here. She found her way out. And the medicine, something would have said, this is madness. I've just got to give up. I've got to surrender. And something would have triggered that. I've got to surrender. That's a medicine. Okay? You find your way out of it. It's a turning point, yeah. So in the mythology, we might find ourselves, in our current lives, we may find ourselves at any of these places we actually don't know. Okay? Typically, when I work with people, it's normally from here onwards. Okay? I don't do psychotherapy. I'm not a psychologist. I don't do this stuff. I don't do drug therapy. I use what's called spiritual emergency. And if you take the Y off the end of emergency, you're left with emergence. But you can only take the Y off when you've resolved the Y. Why did I end up in a spiritual emergency to start with? So the Y can only come off when you've understood it.
And you stop asking why.
No, you keep asking why. It's okay. Well, you don't. It doesn't. Yeah, but that's.
Take the why out.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So you actually start getting.
You work from there.
You're starting to come up this line here again. Take the Y off. Yeah. So that's this point here. So in the mythology, what it does is once upon a time, there's Shrek living in a swamp quite happily. Everything was going along well. The next thing, some crisis. Then we drop down. He had to go and rescue Princess Fiona, and he had to do all this old stuff, good old Shrek. And it got even darker and darker. He rescued her, and he overhears that, who would want to love an ugly ogre without recognizing that she herself was an ogre? Things like that. And he got all misunderstood. Eventually, the medicine came in. I think with donkey was his medicine of all things. And he found himself up there and married Princess Fiona. And we love it. Like Pretty Woman's the same thing. Avatar's the same thing. Star Wars is the same thing. We love those movies because it's all the hero's journey. They're all the same. So we write our own hero's journey. But see, if we write about ourselves, we're still here. We actually can't finish writing that because we actually write only this far. But if we don't write ourselves into it, we can write about some fantasy. We can actually write the rest of it. And the mind, in writing it, will tap into the imagination. The spirit, the soul will come through and tell you what to write. It will write your ending for you. And that's what you do here. That's why the mythology is. So once upon a time, lived happily ever after, and a mythical being. And then you act that out. Very cool. So well, thank you everyone for being here. Hopefully it gives a bit of an idea of the work which has been happening.